Fantastic. Okay. We talked about fear of God last time, right? When a person is humiliated, their face turns pale. Sound familiar? Ban the box on criminal application forms, on job application forms.
Right.
We talked about that.
Sounds familiar.
Okay. Oppressing strangers and orphans and widows.
When I watch a series on TV and the new season comes up, they always show you a recap of what happened before. Are we going to get a recap?
Okay. Yes, we are. So we're on page 38 of the big thing. Yeah, in the previous section, we explored the concept of oppressive language, right? And we talked about, okay, this is being recorded. Great. We talked about I can't pin this, can I? Doesn't matter. Okay. We talked about the oppressive language, like saying to someone, I will, going into a store and letting them know, hey, I'm just window shopping. I don't mean to, I'm not intending to buy. I don't want to mislead you, right? We talked about that, right? And we talked about the responsibility of, embarrassing people about past sins, right? So what we want to do today is talk about the prohibition of asking questions. Is there ever a responsibility to speak up regarding someone's past actions if they may present a danger to someone else, right? So we said Lashon Hara, you can't embarrass people, but what are the exceptions? When do you have to speak up? Okay. So first we have the injunction not to stand by the blood of your fellow, and we're going to trace that through the Talmud and the Midrash. Okay, so we have a verse, and it's from Leviticus. Lo telech rachil be'amecha. Do not go about as a gossiper amidst your people. Okay, don't gossip. Lo tamod al dam re'echa. Don't stand by the blood of your fellow, ani Adonai. So what on earth does stand by the blood of your fellow mean? Like, I have no clue, but what do you guys think?
It could be several things, but one could be don't get contaminated by the evil that other people have done.
Okay, so don't get contaminated by the evil that other people have done. What else?
If someone's picking on someone, don't just go along with what they're saying. Just either take up for the person who's being picked on or say nothing, but don't make it worse.
Okay, good. Bob, any ideas?
Not really.
Okay. So when might you encounter blood? Like, don't stand idly by the blood. When are you going to stand by the blood of your fellow and be idle about it? What's that describing?
Could it be war?
Could be war.
Someone is wounded and he's from the other side. And
yeah, okay.
You're in a position where you could help them.
Okay.
And you should.
So when do we see blood on people?
They've been injured.
When they've been injured, right? So this is like in the immediacy. When you see someone and like the blood is pouring from their body, okay, don't stand idle, right? Or when else do you see the blood? If you walk in on the crime scene, oh, there's blood there, right? Don't let it go uncovered, right? Unattended to. So it could be either of these two things, right? It could be either we are talking about something very immediate where you've got the blood of your fellow, or it could be something less immediate where we are talking about the something that's come after. So let's see what the rabbis have to say on this. Okay, so let's go to the next page, right? And we've got something from the Talmud. Okay, so gufa. By the way, the first word that they've not translated is called gufa. Gufa means body, but also means gufa. Let's come back to the topic. So clearly they've been somewhere else on a digression. Now we need to get back to the topic. Okay. Minayin l'ra'eh. From where do you derive that if one sees another drowning in a river, or being dragged by a wild animal, or being attacked by bandits, that one is obligated to save them, right? If you see someone drowning, you see someone being dragged away by wild animals, attacked by bandits, do you have an obligation to save them? By the way, in American law, do you have an obligation to save them?
No.
No, you do not, right? You do have an obligation. Once you start to save them, then you're obligated to finish it. If you can't start to save them and say, oh, it's John, I hate John, let him drown. Because when you start to save them, other people might see that and say, oh, he started to save them, therefore I don't need to take action, right? So that's a different area of law. But yeah, you can just sit there and say, oh, this is a show. I've never seen someone drown before, right? That's American law, and British law and Canadian law, okay?
Yeah.
Unless there's no positive obligation to save people. So the verse says, they say, do not stand by the blood of your fellow. Yeah, really? Says the Talmud. It is derived from there. Is it really derived from there? The Talmud asks, from where do we know that if someone will suffer bodily harm, that one must intervene on their behalf? Right? How do you know? So it says, and you shall restore it to him. So that's a verse elsewhere. If one only had the latter verse, I would have thought this only applies to saving a person in danger by oneself. But to exert and hire workers, one might have thought that was unnecessary. Therefore, the verse says, do not stand by the blood of your fellow, teaches that one must even hire workers. Oh my goodness. This is like adding something on top. Where did that come from? Okay. Like, where on earth is that coming from? So the Talmud says, A, there's no category of innocent bystander. In the second half, it derives from Leviticus 16. One's even obligated to spend their own money to hire workers on behalf of someone whose life is in danger. Without the verse, you would never have thought of it. Okay? So they're suggesting you can't let people be unhelped. And it looks kind of flimsy because we're not really sure. I'm not even sure what verse they're taking that from. Right. And you shall restore it to him. That's a verse elsewhere. They're not telling us where that verse elsewhere is. Had I been more on the ball, I would have looked and said, where is that? Why, how did that happen? Okay.
I'm a little confused. I don't see what this has to do with Teshuvah. I mean, maybe we'll explain later, but I'm confused at that point.
Okay, so Milt, you're asking the larger question is, this is all very interesting, but what does this have to do with Teshuvah?
Yeah.
Well, Teshuvah is about, there's an element of Teshuvah about the responsibility to intervene. So presumably he's going to tie it in to this notion of intervention, of Teshuvah, of active activity. Okay.
So that's a second meaning of Teshuvah.
Well, let's find out. Okay. Let's find out. So let's go to the next page. All
I
right.
have a question.
Yeah,
Why
please.
would you, if we're trying to do something good for someone.
Yeah.
Someone's in jeopardy and we're trying to save them, why would you have to pay someone to help to save them. Hire workers.
Okay, let's say that a house is collapsed and someone's trapped under a beam, they're trapped in the basement. And in order to save them, you need to have heavy machinery to clear the debris so you can get at the person. That would be where you would have to hire someone to help you save them, right?
Yeah, I get it, but
Yeah.
I don't understand how. I mean, that's not something that happens every day.
No,
So if you have the ability to save someone, wouldn't you just save them if you had the machinery?
but if you don't have the machinery, right? I'm walking along the way.
But if you're the person that did have the machinery and.
Well, then that's fine. But they're saying even if you did it, what it's saying is that okay. Here we go. You are walking along the road, Diane, right? And you pass by a well, and little Jimmy has fallen down the well.
Mhm.
You are the first person to discover Jimmy down the well.
And I have a cell phone, 911.
And you don't have a cell phone. You are obligated to go to the payphone, put money in the machine, call up Jack's well recovery business and say, hey, I'd like to hire you to come and rescue this guy. Okay, that's what it's suggesting. It's a bit of a high standard here, right?
Yeah. I mean, we would call firemen or policemen, but they get paid for doing that work. That's
Right,
part of
Yeah.
their job.
Yeah,
maybe hire is the wrong word here.
Yeah,
I mean, we're asking people to assist in saving someone from some catastrophe.
yeah,
We're not hiring them. We're asking them to help out. Whenever you see on the TV after an earthquake and a lot of people come and they try to dig out their loved ones from,
Yeah.
they're not being paid. They bring in teams with dogs to sniff out human beings. And I mean, the country that experienced the earthquake is, I don't think pays for them. They get paid by their own organization for doing that type of
Right.
work.
okay.
Well, I think hire is the wrong word.
Okay, well, let's take a look here. So this is oops, I don't want to go to that. I want to go to hello, just take me there. Give me some. There we go. Okay, so let's look at this page on the Talmud that we're having trouble with, because that's worthwhile. So we are in Sanhedrin. And we are on 73A. Okay, it's not us. Okay, and 73A. Okay, okay. So don't stand idly by your brother. Okay. Okay, Gufa. Okay, here we go. So they're talking about Deuteronomy 22:2. Okay, there the verse says, if you see your fellow Israelites' ox or sheep gone astray, do not ignore it. You must take it back to their back, but you must return it to them, right? You have to make them whole, right? If your fellow Israelite who does not live near you, and you do not know who the owner is, you shall bring it home and it shall remain with you. And okay, you have to bring stuff back to people. Okay, you have to make them whole. Okay, so they're combining these two verses to say you have an obligation to make someone whole. And if you have to make someone whole with regard to their property, al chad kama v'kama, all the more so don't you have to make them whole for themselves, like themselves, right? You know, if I'm obligated to restore your watch to you that you've lost or your sheep, aren't I even more so obligated to restore you to you, right? I should really be helping you out, right? So let's.
I think this is more true like in rural areas, farming areas,
Uh-huh.
where somebody's barn burns down and then the whole community comes together to build a new barn. You don't see that
Yeah.
in cities so much, but in rural areas it happens.
Okay, so let's take this a little bit further because we're on a journey to get to something, and we want to get to that thing that we are that we are getting to. Okay,
Yeah.
So let's for the sake of person who might be watching this recording, let's put our text back up here again. Okay. And let's go to the Sifra, okay? So let's look at this. This is on page 40, right? From where is it derived? Again, we're looking for proofs of concepts that if you have information to testify on behalf of someone, that you're not permitted to remain silent. Okay, let's say someone's suing someone or someone's on trial and you actually have the alibi for them. You've got the alibi. Okay. Well, the verse says, do not stand by the blood of your fellow. Same verse, right? Don't allow this person to his blood to be discontinued because he's going to be executed if he didn't say something, right? From where is it derived that if you see someone drowning in the river, threatened by robbers or attacked by a wild animal, what is one obligated to rescue him? The verse says, do not stand by the blood of your fellow. Okay, what does this add? It adds, you shouldn't remain silent if you've got information. Okay, so this addresses your answer to your question of how does this relate into Teshuvah, okay?
Okay.
So why is failing to speak up included into the prohibition of do not stand by the blood of your fellow if do not stand by the blood of your fellow has to do with someone who is drowning or being attacked or being, pulled away? How does do not be silent relate into in anywhere in that same category?
Person that's on trial is in as much jeopardy as the person drowning.
Right.
Maybe not immediately, but
Right. The person who's on trial is in peril, right? So if you see someone in peril, either from the actions of others or through your remaining silent. If someone's in danger, you have to act. Now, the question is going to be, on the one hand, I'm not supposed to embarrass someone. On the other hand, if I don't embarrass this person, something worse is going to happen to an innocent third party. Who am I protecting here? Who do I need to protect?
The innocent person.
Right. Of course it's the innocent person, right? So let's look up. Oh my goodness gracious me. I wish that Mark was here because it's his moment has arrived. The admissions committee must evaluate the student's application. She once murdered someone, right? Do the members of the committee have an obligation to ensure that they do not accept someone who may pose a threat to others? Is there a parallel obligation to speak up? Why or why not? Okay.
we need to know more about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like,
Was this person in prison for this? Was it a crime? Was it self-defense?
well, remember, it was a murderer.
Mur-
She was in jail for murder, right? And if you've murdered once, aren't you a danger forever to everyone? Right? Because everyone knows if you're guilty of murder, you're certainly capable of terrible acts like mopping. If you're or sitting in the getaway car. But that's because our system is a little bit strange, okay? So there's a little summary here, he says. eh, We've explored the mitzvah, not stand by the blood of your fellow. We saw in the Talmud, the Midrash, it's an obligation to intervene if one is able to offer assistance. And it may include the obligation to speak up if someone's in danger, and even put your money there. Okay, now we're going to look at where standing on the sidelines is not an option. Okay, you see another person violating something. Okay, okay, the obligation to intervene. Now we were looking before at Leviticus 19:16, right? This is the very next verse. Okay, so we've just said, do not go around as a gossiper, do not stand by the blood of your fellow, and now we're adding in, you shall not hate your brother in your heart. This goes beyond loving them. You can't hate them. Rebuke your brother, but you shall not bear a sin on his account. Okay, this is really packed, okay? What does this mean? Hochiach tochiach et amitecha. Rebukingly rebuke. Two aspects of rebuke, but don't bear a sin. Like, is that don't bear a sin in like, don't be, if you don't rebuke him, it'll cause you to be a partner in a sin? Are you now an accessory to his, bad deed? Or is the sin the way that you rebuke him and causing him to hate you? Okay, this is horribly all mixed up. Okay. Obligation to rebuke. So what's the connection between not standing idly by and the mitzvah to give rebuke? Not stand idly by while someone is suffering, and also to intervene when someone is causing suffering.
I'm stuck with you shall not bear a sin on his account.
Yeah, that's the
He's
really
beating
interesting
someone up.
sentence.
And you try to stop him and the person he was beating up then hits you, you hit him back.
Okay, that could be even worse, right?
Yeah.
Now, in rebuke, this is more like after the fact. You're saying, hey, don't do that, or you shouldn't have done that, right? So, and what is the nature of the sin? That's a fascinating. So let's see if the rabbis are going to make it better or worse, okay? So, Rav and Rav Chanina and Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Habiba taught. So all these four people, like, we don't know who to give credit to. It's like none of them wants credit. So we'll just give it credit to all of them. Okay, here's what they're saying. Whoever can protest their household from performing an improper action. So, okay. Kol mi she'afshar lemachot la'anshe beto. Lemachot. I'm able to prevent something from happening. Machal is also this notion of machal lanu, forgive us, right? So the word is complex, right? Anyone who can protest, velo yechet, and doesn't cause them to pause, right, is seized for the actions of their household. Okay. Georgia. Child goes into school. Child shoots and kills people. Father had control of guns. Father could have prevented gun. Father is arrested for the murders. So they're not making this up, right? The father could have protested. He could have said, hey, kiddo, no, and I'm preventing it. And he didn't prevent them. He is guilty along with them. Okay.
Because he should have known That's the key point.
Right. If he can protest the people of his city and he does not, he is seized for the actions of the people of his city. Okay. I'm going to be 100% inappropriately political here, okay? My leadership is going out and murdering, executing hostages. And I could overthrow my government if I wanted to, but I'm not. Therefore, I'm liable along with them. You know what I'm talking about, right?
No.
The
Hostages in our country?
in Gaza,
Oh, in Gaza,
Hamas.
okay,
right?
all right.
Hey, I'm just a resident of Gaza. No, you're part of that city. And you could complain. You could say, hey, Hamas, you're doing terrible things, and you don't say anything. You're in with them for those terrible things.
But if you're not in with them, you're dead.
Well, technicalities. Extenuating circumstances. Yeah, of course you're right. They're in a possible, terrible situation, right? But he has seized the actions of the people. If the whole world, he is seized for the actions of the whole world. If the entire world is going nuts, and you're watching I Love Lucy, you know, there are no sidelines. Everyone has skin in this game. Wow. We all need to be protesters.
So how do you fight back against Hamas if you're a Palestinian? You're living in Gaza. You have a family. How do you fight back against them?
That is an impossible question to answer. The answer is, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so just taking a side note into this area that it's all impossible because everybody is wrong. But the question is, whose wrong are we going to embrace? Okay. So are the actions of okay. So take Liz Cheney. Okay. Liz Cheney is saying, I cannot be part of this party anymore. They don't represent me anymore. I can't do it anymore. And other people are saying, yeah, I know in the past I said he was a terrible person, but I'm all for him now. Yeah, these verses are loud, right? They are loud, okay? So here's the question. Why is one held responsible for the actions of others? Can we ever be held accountable for the actions of others? Should we be held accountable for the actions of others?
I think it depends on what part you played in the actions of the others.
Yes, did we act as enablers?
Yeah.
Did we act as enablers?
Right.
Wow. So, yeah. And am I enabling, and is failing to prevent someone the same thing as enabling? Okay, I could have stopped it, but I didn't. Okay, let's go into medical malpractice. Okay?
Mhm.
The oh, you'll like this one. The doctor, big noise. The doctor prescribes the wrong medicine. And instead of prescribing the medicine that will help, he prescribes a medicine that is iatrogenic, that will cause harm. Love that word, iatrogenic. It's a great word. It's because they just want, because they don't have a better word for, well, stupid. Just wrong. It's not helpful. It's hurtful. We don't want to use hurt, right? He writes down 100 instead of 10, or the handwriting's so bad, right?
Right.
Who are you gonna sue under medical malpractice? The doctor. Ah, but after the doctor wrote it down, he handed it to the nurse, and the nurse looked at it, and she should have known. She could have caught it. If she had been on the ball, it would have been saved.
Right.
You can't sue the doctor anymore because he can rely on her failure to exempt him from his failure because she was the safeguard. Therefore, you sue the nurse.
Yeah, I think both would have been sued
Yeah.
by a lawyer. A lawyer would have
Yes,
sued both.
but the
Plus
nurse will be
Yeah.
found liable because she was an intervening source of not incompetence, but malpractice, negligence. Okay? I decide I'm going to kill my friend. I pour poison into his canteen as he goes out into the desert. His other friend decides to kill him. He drills a hole in his canteen before he goes out into the desert. My friend died of dehydration. Am I liable for attempted murder? No. Attempted, yes. Murder? No. I'm not liable for murder. I would have died anyways. I push someone off a cliff. He gets shot through by a gun with the heart. He dies. He's dead when he hits the ground. It's not me. The Talmud says, no. No. Okay. Why are we responsible for the actions of others?
As a society, we're responsible.
As a society, as individuals, as family members, why are we ever held accountable?
Because we allowed it to happen. I mean, the imprisonment of Japanese during the Second World War
Right.
in camps.
Yeah.
I mean, that could not have been done without the acquiescence of the American people. If
Right.
they were against it, it would not
Yeah.
happen. The same thing with Nazi Germany.
Right.
You couldn't have killed 6 million Jews unless the great majority of the population either took a blind eye or approved of it.
Yeah.
And there was a book written about that, the
Yeah.
Willing Executioners or something.
Yeah. So let's take a look at this, okay? So this whole notion of responsibility for the actions or the potential actions of others, does it apply to the admissions committee regarding the acceptance of a student with a questionable past? There's no right answer. Just have to give an opinion. Okay, so we're back to the very beginning of this course, okay? Best student we've ever read, but she's a murderer. Are we, and we care about the liability for the university. Never mind, is she more or less liable to be a threat to others? Are we responsible for allowing her into this environment? Is it gonna happen that 3 years down the road, something bad is gonna happen and someone's going to sue the university and say, well, look, if, you know, that student, the one that you chose to admit, knowing that they had a checkered past, caused damage, are we on the hook? And do we need to protect ourselves to prevent her from coming in? Or do we respect that maybe she's made Teshuvah and that history shouldn't be held against her? Is it Mark? This was Mark's issue, right? Finally comes back to it.
Well, there was a series on TV, I think it was called The Good Doctor, about a man who had autism.
Yeah,
But he went through medical school, he became a surgeon, and he was hired by a hospital
yeah,
to do surgery.
yeah,
This would never happen in real life.
right,
Because one mistake that he made,
yeah,
even if other doctors could have made the same mistake, the hospital would have been sued up the wazoo
yeah.
for hiring an autistic doctor. Never happened.
Okay. Okay. So is are the members of the committee responsible if they do not speak up in protest about accepting the student who then goes on to commit an offense?
They're doing what they think is right.
Right. So here's the other thing, you know,
For
right.
selfish reasons.
Now, if I'm really worried about responsibility for people causing offense and I'm a university committee, I would simply not admit any young men. Because I will guarantee you, statistically, most of the violent crimes that occur on campus are done by men. If you didn't admit men, they wouldn't happen. Let's just not admit men. Statistically, I think it's more likely that a man is going to commit a crime than this woman is going to murder someone. So, you know.
Well, you might get your wish because in a few years, 2/3 of the college students are going to be women, only 1/3 male. For other reasons, not because they're going to do harm to other students, but it's just happening in our society.
Yeah, that's true.
As a complete aside, I was watching a bit of trash television, and this person is saying, women are taking over every year. There are less men in control, and he's right, because when you have 100% men and you include a single woman, that's a loss for men, and every woman you add is a loss for men. And guess what, guys? You're going to keep losing. So don't get too mad about it. Poisoning the blood of the system.
Right. Now, going back, for this applicant to be a teacher in a college.
Yeah.
Was she rejected? She was rejected, right? Or
In our story?
In our story, I don't remember.
Of course they don't come to a conclusion in our story.
Okay.
She was rejected, yeah.
But I thought the reason she was rejected is because she didn't do Teshuvah.
No.
Not because she committed it's because she wasn't honest enough in her application.
No.
She downplayed the murder. She didn't.
No, that's all the stories we told ourselves. Let's go back.
No, that's what.
No, let's go back here. Let's go back to page 2. Let's see what it says on page 2. Okay. Page 2. So yeah, I'll do this on this. Let's go to page 2. Go. Okay. Michelle Jones is a doctoral student, American Studies, New York University. She began her studies at NYU the day after serving 20 years in prison for a murder conviction. While behind bars without internet access, Jones becomes a published scholar of American history. She presented her work by video conference. Jones led a team of inmates that poured through reams of photocopies of documents from the Indiana State Archive to produce an award-winning research project. And there's no secrecy that she's in prison. I mean, how could there be? And it's published, okay?
Yeah,
Good.
but the next paragraph.
NYU was one of several top schools that recruited her for
Right.
their doctoral programs. They went after her, which meant they were going after her before she was released from prison. So they know that she's in prison. And she
Right.
knows that she's in prison for murder because they're recruiting her and that's her address. Okay, so
Yeah,
they
but-
can't claim they don't know. Now,
No, but
okay,
keep reading and you'll.
she
if-
was also among 18 selected from more than 300 applicants to Harvard's history program. But in a rare override of the department's authority to choose its graduate student, Harvard, New York City brought her in. Harvard top brass overturned Ms. Jones' admission after some professors raised concerns that she played down her crime.
Right, that's what I said.
She played down her
Not
crime.
because she committed the crime, but she downplayed her crime. She didn't
Okay,
have full confession
so-
of her crime
okay,
or
so-
Teshuvah. She
okay.
didn't go through Teshuvah.
let's be real here, okay? If I have a gap in my resume, I'm gonna downplay that gap.
And then you won't be hired if they find out that you downplayed your gap.
Everyone downplays their gaps, right? Nobody, unless you were the gold medalist, nobody tells you what their GPA is or what rank they were in the class when they apply for a job. Okay? No one's ever asked me what my grades were in rabbinical school. Ever.
No, but when you went to law school, they asked you what your undergraduate grades were.
Sure.
Well, okay. So they did.
Yeah, but they also chose to be partially blind because they said, we don't, your worst 5 courses, we don't care. We won't look at them. Because we don't think it matters. Okay.
Okay.
So downplayed it. Downplayed. What does downplayed mean? I mean,
She
at the time,
She did not give it enough emphasis in her application.
or how much is enough?
Well,
For some
obviously they
people-
thought she didn't.
For
give
some
enough.
people, right, but, well, except. And now we're, talking about contrapositives, things that,
Mhm.
counterfactuals,
Right.
right? The committee that did the research said yes. The board that didn't even look at the research said no. And they're the ones saying, oh, well, she downplayed it. Do they really know? Or is that just the reason they're saying it? Because it's not like they were involved in the discussions with her. They had no contact. They're just coming and saying, nope, looks bad, downplayed. I mean, that's how I read it, okay?
Yeah.
It's not, I don't think the board did serious research. Because if they'd done serious research, they would have done it before she was admitted. Right? Okay, just me. Okay, at the time, okay? Elizabeth Hinton, one of the Harvard historians who backed Ms. Jones, called her one of the strongest candidates in the country last year. The case throws into relief the question of how much do we really believe in the possibility of human redemption? Okay? So, okay. Going back forward here, okay?
We've
Now
gone
we're
full circle now.
going full circle here, so that's what is, is, I guess they're saying, hey, we have an obligation to reject. Okay,
Mhm.
so bringing ourselves to a conclusion. Page 42. In this section, we explored 2 texts which explore the responsibility to speak up. The Bible and the Talmud. So, remember the Ban the Box campaign, which was, don't have a checkoff box saying, were you ever committed of a crime,
Mhm.
right? University administrators and employers have claimed that They need access to the records in order to keep their campuses and workplaces safe. No, I need access to know, were you stupid 30 years ago? Right? Evaluate the position based upon the texts above, right? So you have this obligation, but on the other hand, this reminds me of something from healthcare. Okay. What are the two main, when someone is in a nursing home? Okay. There are two major concerns that are in battle with each other. One major concern is from the point of view of the children, and one major concern is from the point of view of the person who's actually living in the nursing home. Okay. So the question is, what are these two concerns? What do you think they are? Two biggest concerns.
What was the first person?
The kids.
The who?
The kids. The kids of the person in the nursing home. What are they most worried about?
Care of their
Is you get
Parent.
scared.
Safety.
Yeah.
I want my parent to be safe.
Oh, those kids.
Yeah. Now, the parent who is in the nursing home, what's their number one concern?
Food.
What's their number one concern? Imagine yourself in a nursing home. What's the number one thing you want to have control over?
Autonomy.
Autonomy. My front door. I want to be able to lock the door and not have people coming in against my will. If I don't want to eat lunch, I want to be able to skip lunch. I don't want you forcing me to eat lunch. I want autonomy. And what's the problem? Autonomy is the enemy of safety, right? You want someone to be safe, it's easy. Take away their autonomy. They'll be safe. The moment you give them autonomy, they're not safe anymore. If they can lock their door, how can you get in and rescue them? They're incompatible, right?
But it depends on the facility. If it's a senior living facility, then you do have a lot of autonomy. But if it's a nursing home where you need help around the clock, you're going to lose your autonomy. You have no
Right.
choice.
But you
have no
don't,
choice.
right, but you still don't want to. Okay, so I tell this story all the time. I'll tell it again. Nookie Kamen. Nookie Kamen was a fellow in Bangor, Maine, when I was there. He was older. He was blessed to see 5 world championships by the Red Sox. He had to wait a really long time for the last one. Oh my God, did he have to wait? Okay, but he waited and he saw them win again. And he always wanted to be on time. He used to be a film projectionist. So you have to be the timing, because from reel to reel, right? Machine to machine, he was good. So when he came to shul, he was standing up like just before everyone else did, right? He was always, and he made sure that shul started at 9. He was in his seat at 8:58. Okay. Now, problem with Nookie is that he could barely walk. So it took him a long time to walk. Now, the building had 2 entrances. Entrance number 1, level, elevator for the wheelchair people, in. Entrance number 2, scary cave covering, down 2 steps, through, open door, down another step, across the floor, up rickety staircase that's steep with 1, 2 turns. Turn there and a turn there. Which entrance do you think Nookie chose to use?
Second one.
Of course. Okay, and it would take him 20 minutes. So like he was there early, working his way across. And it's like, Rabbi, you got to talk to Nookie. He's gonna fall down those stairs and break his neck and die. It's a liability issue. And the answer, of course, you know what the answer, my next sentence is going to be, right? Nookie Kamen would rather have broken his neck and died then suffer the indignity of using that wheelchair elevator thing on Shabbat.
But that second entrance, did other people use that second entrance also? Was it more convenient for people who were well to use it? I don't
No, the
understand.
people who are well used the same entrance and just
Yeah.
went up the 3 steps instead of the elevator, but he didn't want to use the elevator.
Well, not on Shabbos anyway.
Right. So, but the point is, don't discount people's desire for autonomy. I don't think everyone who is in a nursing home with no autonomy really is okay giving up. I don't think they had a choice sometimes, right?
Right.
So they're incompatible, right? So if you how much risk are we willing to allow into the system is a real question,
Mhm.
right? And so the obligation not to stand by the blood of your fellow, on the one hand, that's I have to protect everyone from this fellow. But on the other hand, I have to protect this fellow from the discrimination they're facing because of something they did in the past. Right? And the rebuke, if you can prevent a harmful action from taking place, do I stand up and say, hey, what about his past? Or do I say to myself, yeah, he's got a past, but it's not going to make a difference, right? There was a great episode of LA Law. Remember LA Law,
Mhm.
right? So, do you remember the episode? Did you guys watch LA Law?
I mean, I didn't watch it much, but I
Remember
read the
they-
series.
So Stuart has this client, and the client is a moil. He's an old rabbi, and it was a circumcision, and the knife wasn't too steady, and it wasn't such a good. I mean, the equipment's still there, but it's not beautiful. And Stuart says, what's the harm? In the community that this child is from, the only woman who's ever going to see his penis is going to be his wife. And it's the only penis she's ever going to see until they have children. So, no, what's the problem? It's not going to make him less desirable as a mate.
Mhm.
There's no damage. He lost the case, you know.
The Moyle lost.
The Moyle lost the case, of
Okay.
course, and had to resign. But
Right.
it's this question of balance. So now we've got like all the tools that we're going to need for next week, I think, right? We've got the obligation to intervene. We've got the obligation to protect. And we've got this notion of we're all responsible. So I'm interested to see how it'll turn out next week. Okay. Thank you for joining me again.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rabbi.
My favorite legal show was Boston Legal, because it had so much humor in it. I don't know if you ever watched Boston Legal.
Oh yeah, that was a funny show.
Yeah, I loved it.
And it made the best argument